I'm joined now by Senator Elizabeth Warren. Thanks so much for joining me.
You bet.
So
Happy to be.
we are right now in a five-alarm fire situation as Republicans are looking to pass this budget bill today. You have some breaking updates about what this newly scored version of the bill would do. Can you explain what you know now?
So the latest, because the Republicans have added more this and more that to try to make sure they've got all their members covered, is that the cuts to Medicaid, remember that's little babies, people with disabilities, seniors in nursing homes, cuts to Medicaid will be almost just shy of $1 trillion. And then there will be cuts to Medicare on top of that. Again, also that billionaires can get tax breaks. Jeff Bezos really needs that right now with his $50 million wedding going on.
Right, exactly. You know, they have avoided Medicare in the past, and I believe that you and I have spoken about this when we last interviewed, but the reason that they avoided Medicare was because that's a stronger voting bloc. These are seniors, more difficult to target than the recipients of Medicaid, which, to your exact point, these are children, these are the disabled, and so less of a potent voting bloc. And so what is your message to Medicare recipients out there in light of this new news that clearly Republicans are hoping they won't find out because, you know, introduce this legislation and try to quickly vote on it before it really before Democrats have the opportunity to explain to people what's in the bill?
That's right. You got that one exactly right. So this means now is the moment. Call your senator all across the country. Call your senator and say, vote no. And it's the cuts to Medicare, but I want to give you one more reason to pick up that phone. There's one more analysis that has now come out, and that is if these cuts go through, 1 out of every 4 nursing homes in the country is expected to close. Not suffer, not struggle, close. And think about what that means. We already have waiting lists for nursing homes, are already struggling with seniors who need care, and particularly seniors who have outrun their savings. And that's what is getting cut in this bill. Nearly $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid and more cuts to Medicare. Taking away health care from millions of seniors, taking away health care from people with disabilities, taking away health care from little babies. That's what it's all about for the Republicans right now.
Can you also speak about what we would see in terms of hospital closures and kind of as an add-on to that? Republicans have introduced kind of some stopgap funding to prevent these hospital closures or to stave off the hospital closures for a temporary amount of time. But what does the fact that they would even need to introduce this funding say about the reality of what their own bill would do?
Yeah, so you've got it exactly right. So here they are. They're going to make about $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid and, like we said, and to Medicare beyond that. And the reason that matters so much to hospitals is hospitals have got no room to cover uncompensated care. So right now they've got people who've got their private insurance, right? That's part of it. And then we've got Medicare, Medicaid covering everybody else.
Right.
You make cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, people still get sick. People still have heart attacks. People are still in car accidents. They show up in the emergency room. There's no one who will pay the hospital bills. And so this means hospitals that are already operating at the margin are going to start shutting down.
Right, because otherwise they would be on the hook for these costs that would normally be covered by Medicaid or Medicare, but now they're not.
Exactly. So what are the hospitals going to do? Part of what they'll do is some of them will just have to shut down. And that's most likely going to be in a lot of rural areas, places where they're already on the economic margins. They're also going to start shutting off services. So they just say, you know what? We can't do that kind of procedure. We can't deliver babies anymore. We're not going to be able to take people for certain kinds of surgeries anymore. So they start shrinking up the hospitals that survive. Third thing that hospitals are going to start pushing toward is, can they charge the people with private insurance more? So right now, you get your insurance personally, get it off the market, or you get your insurance through your employer. There's a lot of talk right now in the healthcare industry. They're saying the price of your insurance is going to go up because of the cuts to Medicaid. That's because the system is woven together here. And there's no way to take $1 trillion out of this system and say, but that's okay. The system will still survive.
Right.
It will not. And the people who will get hurt will be everyone.
And I think the point I wanted to also make was Republicans are at the same time that they're trying to pass this bill claiming that none of this will happen, but simultaneously trying to offer up some stopgap funding to prevent the very thing that they are saying will not happen.
Exactly right. So they've tried to buy a couple of Republicans to get back in the voting with them by saying, okay, we're going to create this special fund for rural hospitals. That's how we're going to fix it. We're going to cut $1 trillion, but we're going to give all of the rural hospitals in the country $15 billion to fight over. Now, two things you got to say about that. First of all, we've had different Republican senators who've held up a hand and say, wait a minute, in my state alone, the cuts are going to be more than $40 billion. Are you kidding me? In one state, that's not enough money. But the second point is a one-time infusion of a tiny little bit of money isn't going to cut it. We talk about $1 trillion in cuts. That's because it's over the period we measure. But those cuts, they intend them to stay there forever.
Right.
And so that just means the hospitals, some will have to shut down in the first few months, some in the first few years, some a little later, if they really are going to withdraw $1 trillion from our healthcare system.
And you know what the most depraved part is? Even this insufficient amount of money that they're infusing into the system to just barely keep it afloat in these rural areas, there's a major drop-off from 2028 to 2029. And I don't know if it's because maybe they think that the pendulum might swing from Trump to a Democrat, but all of these cuts are really gonna land like the hardest in 2029, when presumably there may very well be a Democratic president, but it basically buys them enough time so that they can get through the rest of Trump's administration and then kind of kick the can down the road that way. And if there is a Democrat in office, well, that's when the brunt of these cuts are really going to take hold. And so who are people going to be mad at? Are they going to be mad when Democrats say, oh, you don't understand, these cuts were enacted 3 years ago or 4 years ago by Republicans and it just took some time to settle in? Or are we going to see a situation where Republicans go, hey, weren't things better when Republicans were in charge? Weren't things better when Donald Trump was in charge?
You know, you are so right on that point. But you know who gets theirs right now? The billionaires on their tax cuts.
Right.
In fact, you talk about obscene provisions in this bill. This bill also has something called R&D expensing, which is supposed to incentivize businesses to take on research. But what it does is it's retroactive. So Meta is going to be able, if this bill becomes law in its current form, Meta is going to get a check on day one, ready to go, for $15 billion for activities that they had undertaken back in 2022, 2023, and 2024. Think about that. So the billionaires get theirs right up front. And then whatever happens, que sera, sera. Whatever happens, happens.
Right.
But they're going to get their money while the getting's good. And they're going to push off the costs onto families. And it's just like you say, they're going to try to roll out as long as they can before it really bites and starts shutting down hospitals all across the country until right after the next election. They've got some of this triggering in 2026, but most of it is after Trump is gone. The cynicism in this. This is about Republicans who just don't care about people. What they care about is how they can play the game so that their billionaire donors are still solid with the Republicans and that they can put off the political effects of how they're going to take away health care, how they're going to kill people. Right. Just move it on down the line.
I mean, talk about a good ROI. Mark Zuckerberg donates $1 million to Donald Trump's campaign, and right off the bat, as soon as this bill possibly passes, he'll be getting a $15 billion check for things that he already spent money on, a cost that was already written off. So I do want to put a spotlight on a statement that your Republican colleague Josh Hawley made, and I'll put it right here on the screen. Josh Hawley says that he will vote yes on the bill, but that he's not pleased that it will take away health care from working people. Quote, "This has been an unhappy episode here in Congress, this effort to cut Medicaid, and I think, frankly, my party needs to do some soul searching. If you want to be a working class party, you've got to deliver for working class people. You cannot take health care away from working people, and unless this is changed moving forward, this is what will happen in coming years. So I'm going to do everything I can do to stop that." And apparently what he's going to do to stop that is to advance and vote for the very legislation that would do the thing that he's complaining about. Can I have your reaction to that?
Look, everything you can do, vote no. Just vote against this. Use the power, the biggest power you've got, and that is the power to say no. It's not enough to hand wring. It's not enough to talk about how we're going to have these soul searching. No, this is about action. And the American people, the people of your home state, need your vote, and they need it to block this bill that's going to take $1 trillion out of the healthcare system and crash healthcare for millions of people all across this country. Look, he talks about this as a bad episode in Congress. No, this is Republicans. Every single Democrat is locked arms on this. We are all voting no, and we have said that from the beginning. We are doing everything we possibly can. Right now, we're going to demand that they have to read the bill, just everything we can do to slow this process down. And the reason for that is we want everybody to have a chance to hear more about what's in this bill, how many terrible parts are in this bill, and get a chance to call their senators and tell their senators to vote no. It's not about later on, tell me how sorry you are. It's about do something now while you can. Tell your senator to vote no.
There's also a new piece of opposition to this bill, and that is an unlikely ally for Democrats. Elon Musk has just come out and tweeted, "The latest Senate draft bill will destroy millions of jobs in America and cause immense strategic harm to our country. Utterly insane and destructive. It gives handouts to industries of the past while severely damaging industries of the future." And this is likely predicated on the fact that the Senate draft raises taxes on all wind and solar projects that haven't begun construction yet, while at the same time offering up new subsidies to coal industries. So can I have your reaction to Elon's intervention here?
So actually, let's talk about what Elon is talking about first. The provision got even worse than the one you just cited. It's now taking away all support for basically clean energy projects that can't be finished by the end of this calendar year. So all the big projects are just going to lose their support.
Yeah.
Why does this matter? Because this takes away energy at a time we need it. And this means that people's utility bills are going to go up. The estimates before the latest twist in the Senate bill was that most people would pay somewhere between $220 and $450 a year more on their utilities because of the Republican bill. Now it's just getting more and more extreme. And look, on this, I think Elon is exactly right. Undermining clean energy at this moment and adding a subsidy for the oil and gas industry, it just makes no sense except for political donations.
Right.
Because there's another provision in here. You remember how, what's it been, about 4 years ago when the Democrats still had the majority, we got my corporate minimum alternative tax through. Do you remember this? So
yes, I think it was 15%, if that's correct. Yeah.
Any business that had more than $1 billion in profits, regardless of what other deductions and so on, they had to at least be paying 15% of those profits as taxes. It was just a minimum tax. saying, in effect, we're not going to let you guys just keep working your way through the system. And so you get loophole after loophole after loophole. You tell your investors, we made $3 billion. And then you tell the IRS, nah, we only made $1.50.
Right. I mean, remember the New York Times report, it was either the Times or the Washington Post, that showed that even the Trump Organization paid something like $750 in their corporate taxes.
Exactly. So these guys were paying. Amazon, 1 year, was reporting $11 billion in profit and paid zero in taxes.
Yeah.
So the idea is to say we're going to have corporate minimum taxes. Do you know what's in this bill? In this bill is, except for the oil and gas industry, they are going to get a special carve out because that was the price of getting Senator Lankford's vote, Lankford from Oklahoma's vote in this. And that's what this bill is. You know how people talk about bills that are full of pork? This thing has just become obscene. It's carve outs for the wealthy, carve outs for the big donors, big special giveaways to the richest and the most powerful. And how they pay for it, the 1-2 punch. And that is take nearly $1 trillion out of the healthcare system, more than that when we add the cuts to Medicare, and deficit finance the rest of it to the tune of trillions of dollars, put it on the credit card, and let our kids and our grandkids pay for it. This bill is mean. This bill is unkind. And frankly, this bill is just economically not how America builds a strong future.
We'll leave it there. For everybody who's watching right now, if you haven't yet spoken to your senator, if you haven't yet called their office, especially if you live in a red or purple state, call 202-224-3121. That is the Senate switchboard, the congressional switchboard. They can get you in touch with your senator's office. Please make sure to call. Today is the day that this action is required. Senator Warren, I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Oh, I appreciate it. And can I add one more thing?
100%.
And if you've already called, call again. And call again. Make sure they know how much you care about this, because this is everybody's future on the line. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent or don't even like politics, it's everybody's future on the line. It's healthcare for everyone. It's clean energy for our entire world. It's whether or not we build a future in which somebody besides the billionaires actually has a chance to prosper. So call and call again.
Perfectly put. Senator Warren, thank you again.
Thank you.